So you got a big bore kit for your CRF125 or 125FB and you want to install it. The first thing you need to do is pull the engine out. So the exhaust and anything else in the way are coming off, and we'll pick back up when the engine's on the table. After about 30-45 minutes, you should have the engine off. Now is a great time to clean it. If you want to plug things like your throttle body or some of the sensors or anything else that's open on the engine, go ahead and plug them now and you can wash it, get it nice and cleaned up. And then we can move to disassembly. We're going to pull off the throttle body and the valve cover, and then we're going to put the engine to top dead center. Once your engine's clean, or not clean in our case, you get the throttle body off, you get the valve cover off, and then you got to pull the cam cover here, which Matt already was nice enough to pull out the hardware. Pull that off and it exposes the cam. In order to get the engine to top dead center, you want to get a 10mm Allen wrench and a 6mm for this. We're going to pull both of these out. This is going to be on the compression stroke. To do so, we need a 17mm deep socket, and then we want a 5/8 spark plug socket. We're going to pull the spark plug out, which is obviously right here. And then we're ready to adjust this and find our timing marks, and I'll show you that in a second. So we have our spark plug removed, and that's just a reference point. We're going to use a screwdriver that we can put it in. We're going to hit the top of the piston. Now that's just to confirm that we are indeed at top dead center, meaning that the piston is at the very top of its stroke inside our cylinder here. Now the reason we're doing this is so that when the engine goes back together, we don't have to try to figure anything out. We just time it exactly how it was when it came apart, which is top dead center on the compression stroke of the 4-stroke cycle. Now, the next thing we got to do is take our 17mm socket, and we're going to put it over the nut that retains the flywheel. When you took out this little small spot with your 6mm Allen, there's a timing mark inside there on the flywheel. So I'm going to pull my screwdriver out so I don't damage the top of the piston, just for sake of doing it. And you can turn the engine over. Now there's going to be less compression now since there's no spark plug in there. And you can see the camshaft is rotating along with my wrench here. And we're turning everything through all 4 strokes. Now as you'll watch this camshaft come around, this is what you want the cam gear to look like when we're at TDC. However, it's not just about the cam gear here. We also have to make sure the flywheel is matching up. Now, if you look through this small opening, it's very hard to show on camera. See if I can get you zoomed in. There's a small tick mark that's right next to a T. When that mark is in alignment with that mark, we are indeed at top dead center. Then you come up here, you look at the camshaft, let me zoom back out, and you can tell that's also pointing up. This is flat. You can see these lines here going across are in alignment with this opening here and here, and that means we are good to go. So now we can loosen the tension on the timing chain, take this off, disassemble this whole thing, and we put it back together. We just reference the exact same spot that we're at right now. One other way to check to make sure that you are indeed at TDC is that none of the valves should be open, meaning there shouldn't be any tension on the rocker arms. So we have our intake valve here, and you should be able to wiggle it slightly. It won't be super loose. It's going to be the tolerance that it's set at, should be about 4 thousandths. And then same goes for the exhaust. It should be loose. There should be no tension on it. And you can visibly see that the springs are not as compressed as they are when everything is actually operating and the valves are open. Now that we're at TDC, we got the engine tipped on its side, and we're going to loosen the tension on the cam gear chain, or the timing chain rather. So we're going to pull this bolt out. There's a spring behind it, and there's maybe another small component, depends. And we're going to make sure we catch all this stuff. And then as you can see, it is going to leak some oil as well. Want to make sure you keep track of the order everything comes out. In this case, this thing goes up in here and pushes on that. This bolt sits in here like so. And what happens here is hydraulic pressure is built, and then it puts tension on the spring, which then tensions your timing chain. Everything spins nice and smooth. Next, we're going to take out the bolt that holds in our cam gear, the 12mm. We're going to pull that out, and then we're going to pull off the head. Once the cam gear is off, we can move on to the 2 small 8mm headed bolts that are down here. Then we have 4 12mm nuts that attach to our head studs. These head stud nuts are going to be fairly tight, so you may want to have an extra hand hold the engine for you while you try to break them loose. Matt is insanely strong, so he does not require that level of assistance, but for those of you that are insanely weak, you will need it. Once you have the head studs all loose and the nuts taken off, you're ready to pull off the head. You're going to do this by just lifting up on it, leaving the cylinder in place, and it may need a couple taps from your local dead blow or rubber mallet. Slides right off. Gasket will drop back down, and now notice we do have 2 dowels. There's one on this side, so this is going to be closest to the throttle body and closest to the timing chain, and then one on the opposing side. That's important because later you're going to see these lower ones are actually in opposite spots, and they're both on this side. We'll show you that when we get there. This old gasket also doesn't matter. You can pull this off. You're going to swap it out to a new one. The next step is to take out this 10mm bolt that holds in our timing idler pulley, so to speak. Once that 10 is removed, you can reach in with a pick tool to pull the chain out, and then you can pull out the small idler. Can be a little tough to get out, but as you can see, there she is. Now we're ready to pull off the jug. This may also take 2 people and a hammer. The reason for the hammer is that the head and the jug sits in place with those dowels. Those dowels help align everything, but they can make it a little tough to get off, especially if they've been on there for a long time. Another thing that also holds the cylinder on and makes it tough to get off is these tension from these piston rings. You can see how it kind of slingshotted out of there. That's normal. And you can see this nice tiny little piston that we have here. Touching back on the dowels, oftentimes they come off in the cylinder, or sometimes they stay here. And in this case, one stayed and one left. So just make sure you grab it and put it back so that when you go to put your gasket on, you don't forget it. You put it together without it, it could be fine, but it will likely cause problems in the end. Make sure this is in place, push those down so they can't move. Now we can move forward with taking the piston off the connecting rod. To take the piston off, you need to remove the small retaining clip that slides through the wrist pin. You can see it just flew on the floor, which is very normal. And the reason that we have all these towels here is for exactly that. If it doesn't fall on the floor, sometimes it can go in the bottom end of the engine, and you're pretty much never gonna get it out without tearing it apart. Now that that clip is off, we can push the wrist pin through, and the piston will then slide right off the top of the connecting rod. It's gonna be slippery because it's been oiled its entire life, so when you remove it, you may need to grab needle nose pliers. That's okay. The new piston comes with a new pin, and you don't have to worry about damaging it or making any sort of mark with your needle nose pliers. Old piston is off, looks pretty good, but it's way too damn slow, so we're gonna get rid of it. You can use this time now to inspect your old rod. You can look at end play, check all that stuff out. I have no specs on that, so that's something you have to look up on your own. But if your engine's in pretty good shape or it was running good, it's probably not necessary. Do that at your own discretion. Let's go check out these new parts. We have all our fresh parts laid out in no particular order. We've got the TB 138cc cylinder. We have our rings, we have our new piston, our new wrist pin, our new wrist pin clips, our new head gasket and base gasket, spark plug, billet intake manifold, TB parts camshaft, bigger injector, bearing lifter plate, new clutch assembly from TB parts, and then other supporting components like a gasket and this billet piece that I don't exactly remember where it goes. We also have a flash ECU for this configuration, and we are ready to install the new piston on the existing connecting rod. When you open up your piston and all the components that go with it, you're gonna see a bunch of rings. Now this is our oil ring on the bottom. There's gonna be a ring here, this little wavy guy in the middle, and then another one here, and we're gonna offset these when they're in there so that they're not in alignment. What I mean by that is the gaps are not gonna be in alignment like that. They're going to be switched, possibly 180, something like that. Then we have our middle ring, which is this black one here. This one's gonna go in the center of the piston in the grooves there. And then we have our top ring. Now the way to tell that this is the top ring is by the edge. It may be hard to see on camera, but there is a bevel or a chamfer on the top. And there's also a small logo that says STD. You're gonna wanna make sure that the STD logo faces up. This is kind of just across the board with all these big bore kits. You can see the logo there. So make sure those face up. I'll touch on this again when we install it, but that's the gist of it. This is our new pin that's gonna slide through. We have our small retaining clips for that wrist pin, and then our gaskets. We have the paper one, that's the base gasket. That goes on the bottom below the cylinder between the block or the base of the engine and the cylinder. Then we have the metal one that's gonna go on top of the jug between the jug and the cylinder head. Before the piston can go in the engine, we need to prep it by putting all the rings on it. So you can see here, I have the oil rings on there first. And all you wanna make sure is that the gaps are not in alignment. Otherwise, there's no top or bottom to these ones. Just oil them up a little bit, slide them right on. It's a little tough to get them in place, but just put some time in, you'll get it. Next, we gotta go to the center ring. This is the darker colored one of the two. Notice, again, the text, we're gonna face that up, so it's gonna go on like this. And then lastly, we're gonna put this one on. Ring orientation doesn't matter that much right now, but we need to make sure it's right once it's in place. So we might as well go ahead and do it now. And as long as you don't sit here and shake this thing around, there's a good chance you're not going to move them and line the gaps up. Piston's now ready, the rings are in place. We'll check them once again before we put it on the rod. But the next step is to get one of these clips in place now. These are hard to put on when the head studs are in the way. So what we're gonna do is pick which side we wanna slide this in from, and on the opposite side, we're gonna go ahead and install this now. The opening on this clip needs to face upward, at least that's how they recommend it. Probably could get away without doing it, but that's what we're gonna do per the instructions from the other TB parts kits. So we're gonna face this up, we're gonna pick one side, and then we're gonna slide this through once we get it on the engine. That way we only have one clip left to put in place. Now you can see I have my clip in place. It's gonna act as a perfect stopper for our wrist pin that slides through, and our other clip is ready to go. While I was prepping the piston, Matt was prepping the area for the base gasket. It's just important because it's paper to make sure there's no oil or grease or anything left around this. Also be careful with the timing chain. It doesn't like tip over or fall onto this paper and just oil soak it. It'll just make it that much harder for it to seal. With that being said, we're ready to now put the piston on, and he's gonna take advantage of the fact that I have the clip in one side so he can set it over that connecting rod and slide the pin in with his right hand. With the piston in place, take note, there is an intake and exhaust. You need to make sure it's facing the right direction. You can see the IN is on that side for the larger intake valve. The throttle body goes here, so that makes sense. Now we're also covering it again with towels to keep the secondary wrist pin clip from falling in there. In the event that it does spring off, we want to make sure it does not go in the bottom end. This is a pretty frustrating part of the process. It can be very annoying to get it in place. So we're gonna do that real quick and I'll show you that once it's done, and we are ready to slide the new cylinder on after that. All right, well, that wasn't too bad, but it can be very stressful to get this little clip on here. So let me try to zoom in for you guys. You can see it is pointing up. And one thing you can do is basically, once you make sure the wrist pin is slid all the way in, you'll see a groove that's kind of revealed in that piston there. Start with that side and then take a flathead and push. Stand by, there we go. Take a flathead and push basically right here, and you can compress it and make it go downwards. You just want to make sure when you do that, that it doesn't spring out and hit you in the face or disappear forever in your shop. So once that's right, the next step is going to be to obviously remove these towels and then put the new cylinder on. But we want to make sure our piston rings haven't moved at all. So if you're looking from the top, you can see one of our gaps is right there. And the other gap should be, somewhere else. I'm gonna go ahead and check that off camera, but once we know that all of our rings are in the proper orientation, they're not in alignment with each other, allowing basically compression to come into the bottom end of the engine from the cylinder. Once we know that's not gonna happen, we can slide our cylinder on. When you're ready to slide the cylinder on, you need to compress the rings. Now, if you watch people that build big engines or assemble automotive engines, they use a ring compressor. For this, I suppose you could do that, but I've never done it that way. There's only 2 rings you really gotta squeeze, so you just do one at a time. You want to coat the cylinder with oil if it doesn't arrive to you coated already, and that just helps the rings slide into place, and any residual oil will burn off as soon as you fire it up in the first few minutes of idle time or run time. Now, Matt's compressing each ring here individually. The cylinder's going to slide down on top. Also, take note, we do have our dowels in place. We never remove them, and our gasket is clean and in place as well. We're having a little bit of difficulty getting this one on because the springs have a lot of tension. So while he squeezes it, I'm going to wiggle the head here, and it should drop down onto the piston slowly. You want to do this very gently and without a lot of pressure, so you don't, for one, hit his hands or hurt his fingers, and 2, you don't want to damage the rings at all. Once you have the piston all the way inside the cylinder and all the rings are compressed and there's no tension or binding or anything like that, you can slide it down. You will feel a little bit of resistance, but it's not going to be crazy. Take note that the timing chain is chilling right here. We're going to slide this down, then we're going to take our pick tool and grab that chain and pull it up. So don't worry about it if it's laying there like that. That's totally fine. Also, we made sure that the bottom of this cylinder was clean, because once it hits this gasket, anything that's on it is going to be on the gasket as well. When you bring it down, go nice and slow, because the dowels need to align. May require a light tap with a mallet. It'll drop all the way down. And now we can pull our chain up through. We're ready to reach in here with the pick tool, pull our timing chain up, but we're also going to put a new crush washer on the tensioner bolt, which is right here. See that? You don't have to change yours. If it didn't leak, it probably won't, but it's nice peace of mind. If you have one, go ahead and swap it out. And what we're gonna do is pull this chain up with the hook on the pick tool, slide the idler in, and then run the bolt through. It's a little tough sometimes to get the bolt to align with the center of the idler pulley, but once you do, it'll drop right in place. Tighten it up, and now it's a nice little safety that holds our chain so we don't bury it forever. Now the next step is putting on our head gasket. We're gonna do a once over and make sure we don't have any residual dirt on the top of the cylinder. Anything that may have fallen off your clothes or your hands or anything like that during the assembly could be in the way. Just gonna wipe that off. We're gonna set the gasket on, and then we're gonna take our cylinder head and put it back on top. Before we put the head gasket on, we need to make sure the dowels are in place. So if they're stuck in the other cylinder, like ours are, make sure you pull them out. And don't use needle nose, because if you scratch them or damage them, they may not fit right when you try to slide everything on. Head gasket's now in place, dowels are in place. We're going to do the same thing again where we pick our chain up and hold it on, and then we're gonna drop the head in. We can put some nuts on those studs to hold everything in place, and then we can install the camshaft. We're ready to put the head on, and if you aren't swapping your cam, you can do so now. We are going to a TV parts cam, so we're gonna pull it out before we put the head on the engine. There's a small bolt here that stops the cam from sliding out. Once you take that out, you can literally just grab the cam and pull outwards on it. It'll slide out of the journal, and it comes out pretty easily in most cases.
As long as it's at top dead center.
Yep, as long as they're at TDC. If it's not at TDC, you might have some tension on the lubes, and you're gonna be out of luck trying to get it off. You have to rotate it a little bit, and then it will come out. There she is, absolute trash. Throw that thing in the dumpster. Grab your new cam. Same process to put it in, just backwards. And we're just gonna slide it right into the head. It does have a marker on it, so we know that it's straight up to reference TDC. A little tick mark there, which is the same mark that we use to identify the cam gear when it's at TDC. It can be a little tough to get in. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. can see this one slid right in pretty good. The rear portion of it is the hardest part to get it in, but that really didn't look too challenging. Now we're gonna put that retainer bolt back in, and we are ready to put the head on the engine. Gasket's in place, as we said before. Dowels look good, everything looks good. Gasket's clean, head's clean, everything's clean. Cam's in place. And get it on there. It should kind of just drop right on the dowels like it did. And you want to go through the top and fish out your timing chain. Once you're ready to put the cam gear back on, I've got my hand on the bottom. I'm just keeping the flywheel from rotating so the chain doesn't move like that. Trying to hold it. Matt's got the gear slid into the chain and then slid on the camshaft. This way is the most decent method that I've found to do it because you have the tension on the chain even without the tensioner that makes it tough. So what we're gonna do is run the bolt in there and then check and make sure all our timing marks are still in alignment. He's gonna snug that bolt up, and then we can rotate the engine and make sure all the marks line up. So again, that means the flat cross bolts or lines there, and then our timing mark here on our flywheel. Now, we didn't put our nuts on first. It definitely helps if you do so the head's more secure. So before you try to rotate the engine to check your timing, you wanna go ahead and put on the nuts for the head studs and the two 8mm bolts that went down right inside there. See those two? You can see those. Now first, we're gonna torque these, and then we're gonna torque these, and these ones are 156 inch-pounds or 13 foot-pounds. When you do this, you wanna go in a crisscross pattern so that you're cinching the head down evenly. You don't want to just do 1, 2, 3, 4. You wanna jump around and try to disperse the load evenly. Once your head studs are torqued, then you move on to the two smaller bolts. We cannot find the torque spec for that, so do it at your own discretion. It's probably something like 8 foot-pounds, 96 inch-pounds, somewhere in there. Once that's done, you can now turn the engine over and make sure that all your timing marks still align. We know ours is good, so we're gonna go ahead and install our tensioner. This is gonna add chain tension once the engine runs. It's a hydraulic tensioner, so it's not gonna act tight right away. It's not going to necessarily tension the chain as soon as you put it in. So if your engine clacks a little bit or anything like that, remember you gotta give it time for this thing to pump up in oil pressure. For sake of showing it on video, we're gonna go ahead and rotate it for you. Just show how it ends up. You're basically gonna go through an entire revolution, all 4 strokes, and it should land back on the top dead center compression stroke with all of your timing marks lined up. There is a chance that when you put this back together, you'll be off a tooth on the cam from that method of sliding that gear in like that and trying to lift it up into the chain. If that's the case, loosen things back up and get it right. If not, you're ready to go. Timing wise, you're done. Make sure you torque this bolt up here. Hold on one moment. It's 20 foot-pounds. So this bolt right here, per Honda spec, 20 foot-pounds. Seems like a lot. That's what they say to do. That's what we're gonna do. And when you do this, you can hold the flywheel because it's much tighter, or the torque spec is higher. You can hold this and apply upwards pressure, and you can torque this to 20 foot-pounds, and you're good to go. The timing dialed in and the head tight, the next thing to do is to check our valve lash. For this TV cam, the spec is 3/1000. You wanna do this cold, and obviously, again, at TDC, so the rockers have no tension on them. Again, 3/1000 intake, 3/1000 exhaust. We're gonna get that dialed in, put our valve cover on, and we are essentially done.